Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the She Is Project live, Instagram live interviewing today the beautiful Jen Forster. Just waiting for her to jump on board and join us. And so, as soon as we have some people online, then we will start our conversation. So, I guess at the moment, I'm just talking to myself, and then I will be able to talk to more people once more people come along. So it's a beautiful day here in Wollongong. It's a little bit chilly. The sun is doing its best to peek out from behind the clouds, and I'm wondering whether I actually have good internet signal. Is there anybody? There we go. Good morning. How are you? We're just waiting for Jen to come on board, and when she requests to join us, then we can start our chat with the incredible Jen Forster. She is quite a force to be reckoned with, full of joy, full of sunshine, full of great hard-earned wisdom, and I know will be a super encouraging person to listen to. This is her book. You can get that in a way that it's not too shiny. The Power of a Peaceful Woman, and she certainly embodies that. They are lessons that have been hard won. So, hi Mum, how are you? It's always good to have your mum support you, and especially when she's an older person embracing technology. So, well done Mum, you're a pioneer. You're just never too old to learn how to use Instagram or text messaging. And another family member on board, which is always lovely. But we really need our guest to come on board so that we can chat with her. But while we're waiting for Jen to come online, then I can let you know that I met her on the Sunshine Coast a couple of years ago, and we bonded over our shared love of trail running. It turned out that she is a fantastic trail runner, way faster and more dedicated than me, but we both agreed that there is nothing more wonderful than being able to be out in nature and running and enjoying the diversity of all of that experience. And so after we had a little bit of a chat, we realized we had more than just trail running in common, and we struck up a friendship. And I've been thrilled to be able to share some of her story in Volume 2 of the She Is Project. And she shares a fantastic story about the power of another woman to bring encouragement and ultimately great wisdom into her life that really set her on to the second half of her life in a powerful way. So I am wondering if she has had some sort of issue connecting in. So I am going to click out and I am going to call her because I don't know what else to do, and see if she's maybe not... here she is! Jen Forster, you need to request to join us so that I can include you on the conversation. So go live. Jen, are you there? Here she comes, everybody. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I was just about to disconnect and call you and say, are you on the right profile?
Oh my goodness, I just did jump on, and yes, it's all very technical, isn't it? I was just waiting for the live thing to pop up, and then I didn't see it pop up, and then I sent you a message and I said I'm ready when you are. And
oh, right. And
anyway.
Which I didn't get because I was already on the live. So I think here we are, both of us still learning to use new technology. Well, new to us maybe. So anyway,
Yeah.
but you're here. And look, we've
And
even got matching glasses.
no, I've got a little bit of black on the side of mine. See, great mind. You know
well,
what is it? It's a great metaphor for life, really, isn't it? That, you know, things don't always go as planned, and how do we just roll with that? And can we be okay with that? And can we just trust that it's all going to be okay?
And it is, and it was, and we're together now in our matching glasses. And I've just already had a little chat to the people that were already online about how we met and how amazing you are. And so thank you for joining me this morning. It's so lovely to see you, albeit via technology and rather than face to face. But someday we will be allowed to cross borders.
I know. I'm so grateful. I'm just so really grateful. It was just yesterday that I shared our story, and I share our story a lot because it's underpinned by, you know, for me, the thing that was so pivotal when I heard you speak all those years ago now, that was, you know, there is someone somewhere who will only hear the truth the way you tell it. And I share that with countless people in my life. And it just, you know, we all do have something important in us to say, and we don't necessarily know what it is, but we need to keep speaking. We need to know that there is someone who will only hear the truth the way we tell it. So yeah, I love that you shared our connection, because it was very divine and very synchronistic, and yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, amazing. And it's, as much as I was the one that shared that phrase with you, someone had originally shared it with me. And every time I hear it myself saying it to somebody else, or even now as you've been sharing it, it just resonates so strongly and reminds me on the every time when I feel doubt or a bit of overwhelm of what's the point? There's so many other people out there doing X. Do I really need to join into that chorus of voices? The reality being that each of us brings something unique. Each of us brings our own combination of experiences and perspectives that shape the person that we are. And there are people that we don't even know that will be hearing the message that you and I share this morning, the message that you've shared in your book. I have shared it once already, but that you're there. See, this an incredible book, 49. I can't read it because it's back to front, but it's called The Power of Peaceful Woman, 49 Ways to Drop the Armour and Diffuse the Drama. One more time. And and just that encompassed in that, you share so many incredible insights, which some of which will, you know, people will read and go, oh yeah, no, that sort of speaks true to me. Oh, I think I knew that. But they're in your voice and using examples from your life. And so there are incredible gifts packaged in that people are going to go, oh, you know, I think I'd heard that before, but I never really got it till now. And that's the great gift that our unique voice brings. And so thank you for bringing your unique voice to this conversation. So I want to ask you a lot of the maybe the significant catalyst for a major change in your life and your perspective happened in your 40s, early 40s. Can you give us a brief insight into what those circumstances were and what compelled you to make such a significant change?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was on the eve of turning 40 for me. So I was 39-ish, and I was happily, I'll put that in inverted commas, happily married woman with 2 little kids, in the most beautiful renovated home, living on the Sunshine Coast, which is paradise in any global conversation.
Yeah.
And the outside looking in, it really did look like it was the perfect family, the perfect situation. And look, there was nothing wrong. There was no abuse. There was no physical, you know, or emotional angst, or there was nothing wrong. But I had this pull in my soul, which I now, you know, understand and have a relationship with, that was just whispering, not this, not this, not this. Now, it really didn't make sense to me at the time because it was perfect. By and large, it was quite perfect. But yeah, hearing that not this, then brings up the next question. Well, if not this, what? You know, what is it that it's going to be? And I really want to share with anyone that's listening, sometimes the catalyst for change for us isn't tragedy, it isn't trauma, it isn't something diabolical outside of us. Sometimes, if we're listening, there is a soft, and in fact, I believe all the time, but there is a soft and gentle knowing that exists in us all that will guide us if we trust it to guide us. So for me to make that decision when it looked great, everything looked great, but I just knew deep down inside of me that there was something else that I was here to do, and choosing not to abandon that voice and follow that over staying was an enormous decision to make. And yeah, there, you know, I'm not going to say it was a bed of roses following making that decision. It really wasn't, but it was my journey to take, and it was my learning to receive, to take that, make that decision to leave the marriage and embark on a quest that I unknowingly embarked upon.
Wow. So, I mean, you did use the word perfect and happy and paradise. There's a lot of very positive adjectives there. But I suppose, I suspect that if you're prepared to make such a significant change in your life, which is to leave your marriage and re-establish a new version of family with your two children and your ex-husband and start a new career eventually, and that maybe perfect is not really the right word in retrospect.
No, no, I think, you know, and when I say that, I'm talking, you know, from the perspective of how the world would have seen it, you know, like if
Right.
from the outside looking in. If you were on the outside looking in, it would look, but it's perception, right? Everything is about perception. And, you know, yeah, the kid's dad was happy. We have a really beautiful modern family these days. So I do want to let everybody know that, you know, it wasn't always the case, but we have a beautiful modern family these days. But, you know, yes, he was happy, the kids were happy, but the person that wasn't happy deep down was me. And I think so often for women, we don't value that enough as being a reason to do something different or to make, you know, a hard decision. But I think it really is something that as women in particular, we do need to tap into and begin to listen to that. Now, you know, I'm not in any way suggesting you know, everyone just, you know, goes, oh well, I'm not happy, I'm just going to leave my marriage. I'm not in any way suggesting that. What I am suggesting is that we at least begin to listen to what the inner voice is saying to us. You know, that innate knowing, that deep down resonance that we can all feel and experience, but we often push aside because it's going to cause, it's going to upset everybody else. You know, it's going to make everyone else's lives miserable. And to me, that's a trade-off that I think is robbing the world of who you're actually here to be and the gift that you're here to give. And we all have that inside of us to give, and it will look a million ways on a million days for all of us. Um, yeah, my message is really to help women to get out of their head and get into their heart. You know, I often describe the work I do is helping overthinking women who are stuck in their head to drop into their heart and listen to the voice that exists there, you know. And I think if you are moving from that space and that voice, you are going to make really clear and confident choices and decisions that you don't second guess, or that you don't spend, you know, multiple years second guessing. Should I, shouldn't I, you know? Yeah.
So I want to get you to unpack that a little bit more, because I would put up my hand as an overthinker, a recovering overthinker. And I think for a lot of women that because juggling lots of different roles and responsibilities, the expectations of a lot of people, including the expectations that we place upon ourselves, that living in our head is feels like the only way that we can actually manage that. So what gave you the confidence to pause long enough to hear a different voice to the chorus of voices that were in your head, and then the confidence to actually take action, because that in itself is scary? And I'd love you to just speak a little bit about what it cost you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I want to start by saying confidence isn't somewhere we arrive at. It is something that we cultivate. And I believe that we can all really cultivate a relationship with confidence the same way we get to cultivate a relationship with, you know, what I call our truth, you know, the truth of who we are. So how did I begin that process? So I began by recognizing, first of all, how much of an overthinker I was, and how paralyzing my overthinking was. How, you know, living in the do I do this or not, or do that? Do I, you know, do I go here or not go there? Do I make this decision or not make that decision? And then under that, I would start to posit, well, if I make that decision, how does it affect this person, this person, this person, this person, this person? So in recognizing that I was an overthinker, what I then began to recognize was I was trying to make decisions to manage what was happening outside of me, not what was, you know, what was true for what's inside of me.
Wow.
So what I then began to notice is that when I was trying to manage everything outside of me, how futile that is. Because I don't know if you've ever tried to herd cats, but it's, you know, trying to get everyone to line up and
So
be
true.
how, yeah, and be how you need them to be, so that you can kind of go, okay, everything's how it needs to be, and now I'm okay. I think that's a huge misconception that I think many of us, not just women, live with, in that we will be able to breathe when everything outside of us is exactly how it needs to be.
Yeah.
But when we can, you know, what I now understand is that I can choose to be in that feeling and that space and that energy of everything is okay, despite what's going on outside of me, despite, you know, how everything is happening. And I'm not going to even kid everyone into thinking that this is a click your fingers thing. It's not. To me, there are really three key steps and three key practices to begin to become aware of. And the first one is, you know, I call it awareness in the book, but a deeper version of that is self-observation. You know, cultivating a relationship with ourselves is something we're not taught. You know, we're taught about cultivating relationships with everything else, but not with ourselves. And so I think that what happens is that we, you know, when we're little kids, we have experiences, we have you know, situations that have us create a set of core beliefs, or a set of beliefs about how the world should look. And then, you know, without getting too sciencey, our brains have a thing called the reticular activating system, which is the RAS, which all the role of the RAS in our brain is to match match the outside world with what we believe. So essentially, we're constantly searching for evidence outside of us of that which we believe to be true. So if we
Right.
have a set of beliefs that tell us just simply, you know, as a simple one, that, you know, a clean house means that you're a good person, or that you're organized, or you've got your life together, then you're going to spend your life making sure everything has to be clean and orderly in order for you to be okay. So this is a very quick and simple example, but you can
That's basically me.
right. But if you can, but if you can test that, you know, test that belief, is that just true for you, or is it true for the whole wide world? Well, it's probably not true for the whole wide world. So therefore, it's just a belief that you have somehow picked up along the way and cultivated. And I'm not asking anyone to give up their beliefs, but I'm asking you to at least, can you park the belief for a second and just see, could it be any other way? Something
Wow.
I invite the people that I work with to do in practicing self-awareness and self-observation and cultivating that relationship with our inner self is, can you hold two truths at once? So the example I often work with is I have a lot of tattoos, right? I love them. I just think they're amazing. My sister, one of my sisters, she doesn't have any tattoos, right? And she doesn't love them, and she doesn't think they're amazing. But we have never once had an argument about that, you know. She, you know, I can hold my truth that I love tattoos and I think they're beautiful and amazing, and I can hold my sister's truth that she doesn't. So I'm actually capable, when I stop and pause and just self-observe, I can actually hold two truths. I can actually hold multiple truths, right? We can all hold multiple truths. And when I can hold two truths, I don't have to live in accordance with one or the other. I become the space that allows both to be present, right?
Wow, that's
So,
really powerful.
so that's kind of the work I've done. Now, did this happen overnight? Unfortunately, not like Pantene tells us. If, you know, well, you know, Pantene does say it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. It doesn't happen overnight, but the first step is really beginning to cultivate that relationship with ourselves. You know, really developing self-awareness. You know, I invite people just to, throughout your day, just become aware of your thoughts. That's all there is. You know, the starting point is start to notice your thoughts. Just start to notice when you're up in your overthinking mind and you're thinking, because most of us live there. Most of us live in that overthinking mind, and we think it's us. We think it's us, but it's really not. It's just thoughts that are coming from feelings, emotions that are triggered by usually external circumstances, either strongly or subtly. And it's usually the subtle sensations that are triggered in our bodies that create this overthinking. And if we can begin to just, first of all, just become aware of the thinking, become aware of the thoughts. And so if you're going about your day and you're driving down the road and you realize you forgot to call your mum back or your sister back, and you go, oh damn, I forgot to make that call, and then you notice yourself say something like, oh, that's all right, I'll call them when I get home. And then you'll notice something like, no, I can't call them when I get home because I've got to get the washing off the line. And then you notice yourself saying, oh, but the washing's going to be wet because it's been raining. And then you notice yourself saying, and it goes on and on and on. My invitation is to catch that and ask, who's saying this? Who is this who's having this conversation in their head? Who is this? And become the observer of that. Because we're the observer. We're, you know, Michael Singer, in his, it's a book I just love. It's called The Untethered Soul. And he says, you know, we are not our thoughts. We are just the one that hears them.
Wow.
So get into the practice of being the one who hears your thoughts. Because moving from the person that's hearing the thoughts versus moving from the thoughts, you're going to get two totally different outcomes. You know, moving from I'm the observer of the thought gives you capacity to really drop into love and compassion and empathy for yourself first and foremost. And when you're full of love, compassion, and empathy, that overflows out into the world. So yeah,
So,
it's a very simple process, but it's profoundly powerful and profoundly capable of creating a huge impact and a huge shift for us all. You know, humanity. You know, if we're thinking big picture, it really is
yeah.
a shift for humanity as well. Mm.
So you're saying that when we take the time to observe the thought, it, it gives us the space to then choose what we do with the thought,
Yeah,
whether that thought becomes an automatic action or behavior, or you have the opportunity to shape your response to that thought.
yeah,
And
100%. That's exactly what I'm saying.
and it's interesting, coming from a faith perspective, that in the Bible it says that we're to take every thought captive, and captive sounds a little aggressive, but really it's to have an awareness and then make a choice, and the choice is to submit that thought to the higher truth of
I love
God,
it. Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
effectively what you're saying, which is we take the time to acknowledge the thought, then make the decision to submit the thought to love,
You
to
got it.
kindness, to compassion, to grace.
This is
And
what I
that,
love about you, Linda. This is exactly why I just, adore you so much, because you take my, Jen thoughts and my Jen thinking, and you give such grace to the thoughts. So thank you. I love it. Yes, it's
well,
exactly
thank
what
you.
I'm
They're not my words, they're God's
saying.
words.
I realize.
Uh,
I do
but
realize.
thank you. But I
But you,
think that's, and I love what you said, because again, this resonates so strongly with my own journey. So thank you for being a person that has really pioneered the path and put sort of guideposts along the way, that we need to be kind and compassionate to ourselves first, and that out of that, we have the capacity to extend kindness and compassion to others. And I feel like I don't know how the message got sort of turned upside down, but I don't know about you, but in my experience, I felt like it was more, if I try and be kind to other people, that somehow that will make me a kind person.
yeah.
Um, but often what that made me was was a resentful person.
And this is exactly it. And this is, to circle back to where I was in my marriage, I was becoming, what was inside me was an energy of resentment. And I
Right.
could, that resentment for this isn't, you're all happy, but I'm not happy, but I've got to pretend I'm happy because because everyone says you should be really grateful because your life looks amazing, Jen. And so there was that was a real inner battle that I was having. But I have this thing I say now that that I try and live by. What's in my cup is for me. What
Right.
overflows from my cup is for everyone else. So
Mm,
if I am empty of love, compassion, empathy, there's nothing for the rest of the world. There's nothing for the people around me. So,
mm,
if I've got resentment in me about anything, that's also what's going to be coming out of me, what's
mm,
pouring out of my cup. If I'm filled with resentment, but trying to be a good person out in the world, I'm really just putting out. I'm not actually putting out the energy of what it is that I want to put out. You're right in what you said. We're coming at it in this really backwards way. We're trying to be good people, but trying to do that from a very empty vessel.
yeah.
So, when I find myself challenged with what's happening outside of me, I will these days, try and pull back, and I will do things that fill me up, that
Mm,
feel, and it doesn't have to be big, for me, going for a walk at sunset fills me up.
yeah.
Going for a walk in the morning fills me up. Having conversations, with people like yourself fill me up. So I make sure that I don't try and go out in the world and fix what I can see unless I'm doing so from a very full version of me, a really full cup. And I know that women are busy, and I know that we all have a lot on, but if we could truly take on how much doing this is actually going to benefit those around you, we would all make this a priority without even questioning it. You know, that mum guilt and you know, selfish, you know, the word selfish, we wouldn't take it on as such a bad thing, because we would truly know that the fuller we are, the fuller we are, the more of an impact we can have for those around us, and then obviously rippling out into the world. So yeah, it is important.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like we're unlearning a lot of things, you know, at this moment in time. And, you know, one of the blessings of the COVID-19 debacle, I think for a lot of people, as we've been forced into deeper times of reflection, or the opportunity at least, I don't think the fact that we are at home around our families a lot more than we probably traditionally are means that we do reflect, but certainly the opportunity has been there. And I've found for myself that in an extended period of time of having a much lighter schedule and not being able to travel, and you know, my husband's off work, so he's at home all the time, that there's this tension that exists between, okay, we have the time and the space to tackle some really significant things in our life, or we can watch 5 hours of Netflix. and so the two things are at war with each other, because it's easier to distract and to deny and deflect from those really challenging things, and to sort of numb the stirring feelings of maybe restlessness. How did you, in that period of time between making, you know, quite a seismic shift in your life perspective and circumstances, and you know where you are now 10 plus years down the track, how did you navigate those times of overwhelm and doubt and fear? And I mean, did you have moments where you thought, oh geez, what the heck, what have I done?
Oh my God. So many times I had, you know, those crises in my life where I was questioning everything. And, you know, if I had to, you know, so that was the crisis, but it was also the answer. You know, the answer to the crisis was to stay in the questioning. You know, if you want a better answer, ask a better question. So I used to be somebody who lived in what's wrong. I was right, but I was equally right that I was wrong as well. You know, so being right was a real survival mechanism for me. And when we're really caught in needing to be right as a survival mechanism, we're not necessarily asking the most powerful questions. So one of my practices that I have had since around 2013 was to really every day make a list of at least 5 things that are so right in my life. Now, this is slightly different to gratitude. Gratitude is really important. I totally am a big fan of gratitude. But looking for what's so right in your day doesn't just mean cherry picking, did I have some good stuff happen? Right. It actually asks you to sift through the whole rubble of the day and look amongst everything for what was so right. So you could have the worst day ever, but have a look in amongst the rubble. There's something that's right in amongst there, but we're not trained to look that way. You know, we have neural pathways that as humans have us need to survive. So to survive, we have to be right. That's a primal mechanism, you know, in the survival of humanity, basically. But if we can know that in and amongst every situation, there is something that's so right here, you know, and that's just my language, I call it looking for what's so right, but it could be looking for the gift, looking for the learning, looking for the growth, looking for the expansion, looking for what I can't see, what what is God trying to show me here, that I can't yet see for myself. That's a really, to me, a powerful daily practice to do a scan of your day. Just doesn't matter what was in your day, but have a look and pick out as many things as you can that were so right about your day, because we're missing, when we have a bad day, we're missing the most important parts of it. For example, like I have clean water coming out of my tap. We're missing that, because we're so pulled into what's what's wrong, and so for me that was a really important practice. And just being in the questioning, when you are questioning everything, question everything. It's like the problem and the solution.
That's and that is I don't want people to miss the power of that, because I would add my voice to yours and say that for me, giving myself permission to be curious, not in an undermining or argumentative way with another person or with myself, but just from a position of wonder and awe, and and humility, and saying, I want to know, because I become increasingly aware of how much I don't know. And I believe that there's more for me to discover. There's more for me to know. And if I get trapped in that perspective of my survival and identity depends on being right, I don't give myself permission to ask questions that demonstrate I don't know everything, because that feels like failure. It feels like weakness and vulnerability. And I think we've been educated in our culture, at least in Western culture, that is to be rejected. Whereas having this more open-hearted posture that is so in alignment with the reality of living as a follower of Jesus Christ, who is the embodiment of infinite wisdom and creativity, is that how on earth could I imagine that I already know everything there is to know about creation, about science, about other people, about myself? And so being able to give ourselves permission to take time to ask, I mean, I suspect for a lot of us, a lot of what's involved there is fear, because fear of the unknown, and then fear of what we may come to know that we don't know what to do with that new information.
Yeah, that we're not ready to take on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It was definitely me, back when I made the decision, I could hear this wisdom and this growth inside me, but I couldn't, it took a little while for me to to act upon it, And I know, Linda, this about me. I grew up having a really, great relationship with God and the Bible. And then I had a long period where I didn't, because it didn't make sense to me. And then through you, I have reconnected with the Bible and God. And, and the thing that I would love to share with anyone who, listening, I think, I don't know my Bible inside out, but I know my heart inside out. And, my heart is God, right? Is life. That's, if you really want to get to know God, get to know yourself. And it's definitely the journey that I've been on. So, and I'll continue to be on, because for me, it's a really natural way to do it. The more I cultivate a relationship with me and my heart and my deep truth, I'm actually, whether I know it or not, cultivating a relationship with God too. So I don't know, I just felt called to share that.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And it's an interesting dynamic that for so many of us, we've again, we've been taught to be so distrustful of ourselves, whilst at the same time, if you're a believer in God, a follower of Jesus, you can happily say, well, I'm made in the image of God. The Bible tells me that. Yet I think we often stumble over reconciling what that really means. If we're image bearers of God, then the truth is that we bear the DNA of God, that there is a part of us that is inextricably linked to the Spirit of God. And so the more we take time to reflect on just how incredibly complex and miraculous we are, it can't help but direct our attention back to how miraculously complex and creative and infinitely loving and kind God is, because it's a cycle of understanding and reflection. But I don't know, my culture taught me that was something I needed to just be very nervous about. But I feel the more I've opened up my heart to understand how much bigger God is than I ever gave him credit, the way more interesting life is, and that gave me the confidence to ask questions that I'd been too afraid to ask in the past.
Same. Yeah.
And
This is how our friendship even evolved. I remember that.
so
I don't know if you remember that conversation. I remember walking round and round and round and round and round and round a park for 2 hours, asking you these questions that I'd never found anyone that I could ask these questions of, and it was just, I'm so forever grateful to you for that, because that was part of my asking better questions. When I talk about, I was really having, as you'll remember, I was having this, really complex internal argument with myself, and knowing that there was something there I couldn't yet see, and seeking out the people that I could, truly ask those questions of. It's all part of this process. It is all part of, what I talk about in my book, which is moving, or, not moving. There's a book that, and I'm not knocking this book at all, but there's a book that says, feel the fear and do it anyway. I prefer to think about fear as something that we need to feel, and rather than just blindly do it anyway, we do need to feel the fear first and question the fear, question what's in there, and then decide how and where you're going to move. Because a lot of fears we have come from the conditioning and the beliefs that have come through who knows what in our lifetime, that have, made us who we are today. So, definitely getting into that constant, just be questioning, be open to everything, be open to knowing that for sure the thing that you don't know is that there's always something to know, right?
It's so true. And I feel like I'm just conscious of time, that we need to wrap up. What this conversation is not long enough, but just this sense that asking the question is one of the most important things I think that's come out of this conversation, is that when you feel fear, ask yourself why, what. When we feel pain, pain is trying to tell us something.
Yes.
When we feel joy, it's telling us something as well. If we're able to just take that extra, moment and say, and what is this telling me? Rather than just blindly pushing through every feeling or reacting to every circumstance. If we take the moment and just ask ourselves one question, how that has the ability to change everything. And I would say, in my observation of your life, and we haven't got time, haven't had the time to talk about the breadth of all that you've experienced and all that you've invested into the lives of so many other people. But because you made that shift, your life changed significantly and is a richer and more fulfilled and more whole version of yourself. Because you took the time to ask the question and listen to the answer. and keep showing up and doing that. Is, you know, that's what's really inspiring to me, is that this wasn't just something that you thought, well, I'll have a go and then I'll revert back to back to stock standard
Yeah.
average. Is that you've just kept going. And maybe we could sort of close out our conversation with some encouragement for anyone that's listening. What gives you the energy and the courage to continue to show up? Because I know it's not always been easy, and I know that it's cost you maybe what, from an outsider's perspective, some of the luxuries of life that you could have quite happily been enjoying,
Mm.
you've had
Yeah.
to forego for the greater journey that you're on. So how do you stay in that
Yeah.
space of showing up and staying curious and counting the cost?
Mm. I think it comes down to you can't unknow something. Once you know something, it's really impossible to unknow it. And as I've been on this quest, and I do consider it a quest of learning, unlearning, and relearning, I have discovered a version of me that I can't abandon now, no matter what. You know, she is my truth. She holds the gift that God put in me. She she is the strength that drives the mission that I'm here to serve, you know, to serve. And I can't abandon that because I now know the truth of that. And so when I get scared, and I do, and when I, you know, get overwhelmed, which I do, and when I get, you know, anxious, which I do, and when I want to run back to the me that I was 10 years ago, I know that I can't, because it would mean abandoning the truth of who I am today.
Wow.
And I can't do that. So yeah, that's what carries me.
Well, thank you for counting the cost and continuing to show up and not abandoning the true you, because I love the true you. And I wouldn't be the person that I am today had I not had the random encounter a couple of years ago and then our ongoing friendship, because you have been an inspiration in ways that you're probably not even aware of. Your book is full of not just great wisdom, but really practical activities and tips and exercises and takeaway points that make it so accessible. So it's not unusual for me to just pick it up and open it to a page and read, you know, that little chunk and think, right, okay, good.
You
That
know,
was good for me.
I tell people all the time, Linda, you know, I read my own book all the time. I have the original proof copy that's got proof copy written in the front of it, that I carry around with me. And, you know, it's not a ploy, you know, to go, oh, here's my book. I actually read it, and I read it like it's not my book, because it's not just wisdom that I have learnt and now paraphrase because it sounded good. Everything that's in that book is how I live my life. It's my, you know, they're my principles that bring me always back to, you know, no matter the question, love is always the answer. You know, can I give up being right even when I know I am, to allow love in?
Wow.
And being in acceptance of every human being just as they are, and not as they aren't, you know.
Wow.
So I, and the book is filled with, yeah, you're right, it is filled with different practices and lessons depending on the situation, but ultimately to apply those big things, you know, which is yeah, how I live my life. So yeah, and grace is, you know, yeah, grace is a big part of that, you know. For me, it's been a huge part of it. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and the journey continues, and I'm sure
it does.
there'll be another book on the horizon at some point. But thank you for being part of the She Is Project community, for sharing your story so generously, for writing your amazing book, which I'll put a little link to that in the notes of this. And it's just been a pure delight and really enlarged my heart to speak to you today. And I can't wait till our next conversation. Thank you, beautiful Jen.
Oh, I'm so grateful to you, Linda, to the She Is Project for being in volume 2. If anyone is watching and wants to reach out, I'm a very, very open book. I'm very accessible, and I'm more than down to have a cup of tea and a chat over Zoom with anybody. So yeah.
Oh,
please,
thank you.
please.
So generous. Yeah, she's the real deal, people.
What you see is what you get. So if you talk to me one-on-one, it's exactly this. It's no different.
And I love that. Well, you have a fantastic day. Love you lots.
Love
Bye.
you too. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.